Hi, this is Chris from We Communicate. In this video we'll be looking at understanding all the French tenses, the indicative tenses as we call them. So we won't be including the conditional, we won't be including the passé simple, we won't be including the subjunctive, but we'll be talking about the present tense, the past tense, the future tense. So we'll be looking at all the basic tenses. The best way to follow this is to download the PDF. If you go just beneath this video, you'll see a link to the PDF. The best thing is to put this video on pause, download the PDF from the website wecommunicate.com so you can properly follow the video, and once you have it you can follow along. And once you have the PDF, what do you see? Well, you see a grid. You see a PDF with a grid with all the tenses that we'll be speaking about, and we'll be talking about the different functions for each French tense, or at least most of the French tenses. Well, the starting point is the middle column, the pink square that says start here. And we'll start with the present tense. What are the different functions of the present tense in French? Why do we use the present tense? Well, the first function of the present tense is to describe an action you're doing now. And this is what I usually do in my class. Give me an example of something you're doing now. Well, most of the time, if we're face to face, people are looking at me, people are listening, so you can say anything like, I'm listening, j'écoute, I'm speaking, je parle, I'm seeing, je vois. So this is the first function of the present tense. Describe an action that you're doing now. This is the way it works in French. J'écoute, je regarde, j'entends, je vois, all the things that you're doing in the present moment. And French, of course, as a reminder, doesn't have all the ing verbs. So you go straight to the action. I see, I hear, I look, right? I speak. You don't need to find an equivalent to I am doing. You go straight to the action. So that's the first function of the present tense. Speaking of actions that you are doing right at this present moment. Go down one, and we're still in the middle column. Number 2, the second function of the present tense in French. Describe an action that you regularly do as a habit. You can place toujours, which means always. You can place jamais, which means never. And you can place souvent, which means often. What we're doing here is that we're talking about the second function of the present tense. Why do we use the present tense in French? Well, to describe something that we do regularly as a habit. In English, this would be I do sports, I regularly do sports, or I never do sports. But it has to be sort of a cyclic habit, something that comes back regularly. And this includes truths such as the Eiffel Tower is in France. If something is true, well, it regularly comes back. It's always true. So describe an action that you regularly do as a habit. For example, I walk in the woods. It's something I do regularly. Je marche dans les bois. Now in English you would say I am walking if it's right at this moment, but you would say I walk if it's a habit. But there's no difference between those two in French. As I said, you go straight to the action. Je marche dans les bois. It could be a habit that you have. If you don't eat meat, you could say je ne mange pas, I don't eat meat. Je ne mange pas de viande. So it's a habit that you have of not eating meat. That's the second function of the present tense in French. Next we're going down, we're still in the middle column. Number 3, describe an action that's temporarily true, and you can add pour le moment, at the moment I can see you. Pour le moment, je te vois. At the moment I can see you. Pour le moment, j'écoute. At the moment I'm listening. So it's temporarily true. You could say it's raining. Il pleut, so it's temporarily true. You could say I'm wearing a hat. Je porte un chapeau. So it could be a long-term thing. This could apply to example number 2. I regularly wear a hat. Je porte un chapeau. Je porte souvent un chapeau. I often wear a hat. But you can use the present tense to speak of something that's temporarily true. Je porte, pour le moment, je porte un chapeau. At the moment, I'm wearing a hat. And on the next page you'll see example number 4. That's the last reason to use the present tense. Still in the middle column. Describe an action that you're performing now. And I wrote here windows and lights. So what that means is, in French, if you give someone, for example, your business card, you use the present tense. Je te donne ma carte, or you'll likely use vous. Je vous donne ma carte. But in English we use will. Wait, I will give you my card, but you're actually doing it now. It's like saying, wait, I'll close the window, but you're already stretching out your hand to grab the window. So I'll give you, but in French, you say, attendez, je ferme la fenêtre. Wait, I close the window. You don't say, I will close the window. You say, wait, I close the window. Or wait, I give you my card. Or I'll close the car, but you already have your keys in your hand. Just a sec, I'll close the door. I'll close the car door. Attendez, je ferme la fenêtre. Je ferme la porte. You see, so something that you're doing now, you're extending your hand. You're actually performing the action now, this second, and commenting on your action. Well, you'll use the present tense for that in French. And that's why the francophones, when they speak English, very often they'll say something like, wait, I give you my card, I give you, because they're doing it now. So to them, it's logical to use the present tense. Instead of saying, wait, I will give you my card, I'll give you my card. Or they'll say something, imagine you're in a restaurant, and they'll say, wait, I'll look for the reservation, I have it on me. But you don't say, just a second, I look for the reservation. But a speaker of French might say in an English restaurant or an English speaking restaurant, they might say, wait, I look for the reservation, I'll look for the reservation. But so that's the purpose of that, the fourth use for the present tense, to describe an action that you're doing at the moment. Wait, I will give you my card. Attendez, je vous donne ma carte. Je cherche la réservation. I'm looking for the reservation. So these are the four first uses of the present tense in French. That was the middle column. What we'll do now is go to column -1. So that's my own little classification. It's not a grammatical thing at all, it's my own invention. We'll look at the passé composé, which is the name of a tense, which has an equivalent in English, and we'll soon see what this one does. Well, the first use of this tense is to give me a piece of information, or give me a piece of news about something you did or that happened. That's the first function of this tense. For example, I bought a sandwich. It's something you did or that happened, and this is the first reason to use this tense. J'ai, I have, acheté, I have bought, a sandwich. I bought a sandwich. And we'll see later why there are two versions in English. I bought a sandwich and I have bought a sandwich. But these two versions become one in French. You'll say, j'ai acheté un sandwich. This is what I would ask someone in a class. To make sure they've properly understood the use of this tense. Tell me something you did or that happened. And someone might say, oh, it rained. This is something that happened. It rained. So the action of raining in French is pleuvoir. So you might say, il a plu. Provided you know that conjugation, of course. You might say, il a plu. And it's a correct use of this tense because you're telling me something that happened. Another thing that might have happened is, we voted this morning. It's something that I did or that happened. On a voté. We have voted. On a voté. Another thing that you might have done is, oh, yesterday I saw a concert. That's something I did. I saw a concert. J'ai vu, I have seen un concert. J'ai vu un concert. So each time you want to express something you did or that happened, you'll be using this tense, which is called the passé composé. And if I were to look for more examples in English, well, it's all things such as anything that you did or that happened to you. I had an accident, I repaired my bicycle, I mowed the lawn, I bought something, I saw a film, I closed the window, I hoovered today, I cleaned the kitchen, anything, any sort of thing that you did or that happened, you'll express it with the passé composé tense. That's the function of this tense. Now, of course, you'll have to study how it works. You have to learn how it works. That's just another thing altogether, but we're talking about the function of the tenses. Now, if you go down one, you'll see that there's a second function of the passé composé, which is not always the easiest to use. Tell me the conclusion of an event that happened in the past. So this is typically the sort of thing that you would use when there was an ongoing action in the past. You were having a party, and you want to say, how did the party go? We had fun. On s'est amusé. It was an ongoing thing in the past, and you want to give me the conclusion of it. And you want to say something, I spoke to everyone, I had a good moment. So that's the conclusion of the party. J'ai passé un bon moment. So you're concluding the conclusion of the ongoing thing that you had, last night, yesterday, earlier today, was j'ai passé un bon moment. I had a good moment. Or j'ai parlé à tout le monde. You know, I saw many people, and what's the conclusion of it? Well, I spoke to everyone, I had a good time. So these are the two main uses of the passé composé, just to communicate to someone something you did or that happened. I'm looking around me in the background, I might say, well, I changed the strings on the guitar. That's something that you did or that happened, or the guitar fell. La guitare est tombée. It's something that happened. Not necessarily that I did, but it happened. Something that you did or happened, or I lost an important document in my folders here. All these things that you did or that happened. And the second use of this tense is to speak about the conclusion of an event that happened in the past. So it's not always the imparfait tense, it can be the passé composé tense also. I'll try and explain the second function a bit better, because if you're in an ongoing situation in the past, you know, if I ask you how was the evening, you might have the choice between two answers. You might say, I found it fun, je trouvais ça amusant. So you're using the imparfait tense, which is the next one we'll be speaking about. But if you rather want to summarize the events, then you'll say j'ai trouvé ça amusant. You see, so you can either summarize the events or sort of change the camera back to the events and film as they were going on, and you say je trouvais ça amusant, which translates to I was finding it fun. I was finding the evening fun. How was your evening? C'était comment? How was it? So you could answer je trouvais ça amusant. I found it fun, so I was finding it fun. Or you could say j'ai trouvé ça amusant. So here you're summarizing the whole thing. J'ai trouvé ça amusant, or je trouvais ça amusant. So sometimes you have two choices. And this is why I've included the second choice in the passé composé. The next one we'll talk about is column -2. We're moving to the left, and this is the imparfait tense. And it's interesting that the imparfait is often based on the sound est, but the passé composé is often based on the sound et, but not always. Well, the first use of the passé composé is, number one, tell me of a habit that you had in the past. And this is something I would ask in a lesson. Tell me of a habit you had in the past, or what is something that you used to do but you don't do anymore. Then you could say, well, I used to go to the shops quite often, but it's not something I do now. So you could say j'allais souvent, often, au magasin. J'allais souvent au magasin. So it's often something you used to do, but you don't do it anymore. J'allais souvent au magasin, but I stopped doing it because now I buy things online. You could say j'allais à l'école en vélo. I used to go to school on my bike. It's something I did when I was a kid. It's a repeated thing that I used to do as a kid, but I don't do anymore. J'allais à l'école en vélo. It could be a style of music that you used to like, but you don't like it anymore. Avant, j'aimais bien le reggae. I used to like reggae, but not anymore. So it's a habit. You were in the habit of liking reggae. It's an ongoing thing in the past. You used to like reggae. You liked reggae on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know. From one week to the next, you used to like reggae. J'aimais. I was liking. I used to like reggae, but not anymore. J'aimais le reggae, mais je n'aime plus le reggae. I don't like reggae anymore. So this is the first function of the imparfait tense that rhymes in est, with je, tu, il, and the very last one. So j'aimais, tu aimais, il aimait, and the very last one, ils aimaient. Four of them rhyme in est. The second function of this tense, the imparfait, is to set the background to an action that you express with the passé composé. Ooh, what does that mean? You're setting the background. So what that means is we were all sitting in the lawn, that's the background, when all of a sudden it started to rain. So you have an action. So this is something that you did or that happened. We're back in column -1. Tell me of something that you did or that happened. Oh, it rained. It's something that you did or that happened. But what was the background to this action? Well, we were all sitting around in the lawn. On était tous assis. That's what we were all doing. That's the background. I'm setting sort of the stage, the background to the main action. And then all of a sudden something happened. Il a plu. All of a sudden it rained. You could say something like, I was in the museum when all of a sudden you called me. So I was being in the museum. That's the background. I was being in the museum. J'étais dans le musée. Quand, when, tu m'as appelé, when you called me. So j'étais dans le musée, that's the background of the action. That's the ongoing thing I was doing in the background. That's the setting the stage. Quand tu m'as appelé, I was in the museum when you called me. What were you doing? What was going on at the moment the main action happened? So je marchais, I was walking quand all of a sudden I saw you. Je marchais quand je t'ai vu. I was walking when I saw you. So je t'ai vu is column -1 because it's what you did or something that happened or that you did. Je t'ai vu, I saw you. Tell me of something that you did or that happened. Je t'ai vu, I saw you. But what was going on? Well, I was walking when I performed this action. Je marchais. Quand je t'ai vu, I was walking. When I saw you, I was sitting in the museum when you called me. J'étais dans le musée. J'étais assis. I was sitting in the museum. I was watching a concert. I was watching the concert. Je regardais le concert. You usually listen to a concert, don't you? J'écoutais le concert or je regardais le concert. That's what was going on. Quand? What could have happened while I was watching the concert? When the postman came. So I was watching a concert when the delivery guy came or the postman came, but I missed the delivery. So je regardais le concert quand le facteur est venu, quand le livreur est venu, when the delivery person came. That's what I was doing while the action happened. And the third use of the imparfait tense, we're still in column -2. Describe an atmosphere or a setting in the past. What could the atmosphere have been like? Well, it was fun. So you went somewhere, what was the atmosphere like? C'était amusant. It was fun. So literally, it was being fun. C'était amusant. How was it? C'était amusant. So here you're not summarizing the action. It's not always possible to summarize the action because yeah, it was being fun. C'était amusant. How was the weather? What was the setting like? You know, the setting is also the weather. It was being beautiful. Il faisait beau. It was being beautiful. Il faisait beau. So il fait beau means it's beautiful. Il faisait beau. It was being beautiful. That's another use of the imparfait tense. Il faisait beau. You could say il faisait trop chaud. It was being too hot. What were your holidays like? Oh, il faisait trop chaud. That was the atmosphere. Il faisait beaucoup trop chaud. It was much too hot. You see, this is the use we're talking about with the imparfait. It was being much too hot. Il faisait beaucoup trop chaud. You can use the verb it was, you know, and any adjective you like, you know. C'était amusant. It was fun. C'était ennuyant. It was annoying. It was boring. C'était passionnant. It was fascinating. And all these things describe a certain atmosphere. What was the atmosphere like? You will usually use the imparfait tense. Next we'll move to column number 3 and we'll go to the tense called the plus-que-parfait, the oddly named plus-que-parfait. Well, the first function of this tense is tell me of an action that happened before another, and we have that in English also. It's called the past perfect. For example, we all went to see a film, but I had seen it before. So at an earlier moment in the past, I saw the film. Then later, we all went to see it together. So we all went to see the film, but I had already seen it. I had already seen it. Now, most people don't respect the past perfect, and it's sort of tense that you want to place in your essays in English class. But when we speak, there are many reasons why many people skip it, phonetic mainly. But I had seen it, or we went to see a museum, but I had visited it 2 years prior, so I had already seen it 2 years prior. So this is the function of this tense. You might say, on est allé au musée. We went to the museum, on est allé au musée, moment -1 in the past, mais je l'avais déjà vu. I had already seen it, or je l'avais déjà visité. So you're contrasting two events, and the difference here with English is that you must use this tense in French. You can't sort of cheat and use any tense you want, not like in English. So, on est allé au musée, je l'avais déjà vu. You could say, on a vu un film ensemble, we saw a film together, but, je l'avais déjà regardé. I had already watched the film. Je l'avais déjà regardé. At an earlier moment in the past, I had already seen the film, and then later on, we watched it together. That's the function of that tense, le plus-que-parfait. And the second function of this tense, the plus-que-parfait, is to remind me of an action long ago. So we don't do this in English, but we do it in French. So that means if you want to remind someone of something that they might have forgotten, you might say, "Oh, come on, you remember? We went to that Greek restaurant. Come on the beach. You know what? It might have been 15 years ago. Oh, come on, we spoke to those tourists and they gave us their old fishing rods, or come on. And to say these sorts of things, you would use the plus-que-parfait. So you might say, allez, tu te souviens, you remember. On était allé à ce restaurant. We had been to that restaurant. Sounds odd in English, but you'd say that in French. Come on, we had been to that restaurant. You could say, yeah, come on, we had swum in the sea. On avait nagé dans la mer. On avait nagé. It's just to emphasize that it was a long time ago. On avait nagé dans la mer. On avait parlé à ces touristes. We had spoken to those tourists. It's also used when you want to remind someone of what they had said in case they forgot. In the case of someone breaking a rule, and you might say, oh, come on, we had said that we're not doing that again. We had said that we close all the windows at 10 o'clock or something because of the mosquitoes. Oui, mais non, hein? Oh, come on, no. On avait dit que we had said that we close all the windows at 10, qu'on fermerait toutes les fenêtres à 10 heures. And we're doing this to sort of emphasize that it might have been a long time ago, at least in the memory of that person we're speaking to. So it's not always in reality that it was a long time ago. It's not necessarily 15 years ago, but you might just use this tense just to remind that person, in case you forgot. I know you're considering that it was a long time ago and you forgot, but it isn't a long time ago because we had said that we were closing all the windows at 10. On avait dit que. And that's the second use of the imparfait, of the plus-que-parfait. When you use this tense, you're sort of implicitly agreeing that it was a long time ago. And these are the two uses of the plus-que-parfait tense. And I propose we go all the way to the right now, and we're back in column +1, number 1, and there's aller plus verb, which some people call what they call the futur proche, which is something I never liked. I never used the term futur proche. I call it aller plus verb because there's nothing close about this future, so it's very misleading, which is why I never use this term. But tell me of an action that you have the intention of doing later. So you're here now, we're in the class. Tell me of an action that you have the intention of doing later, and I'm emphasizing the word intention. It's just an intention. Later, what am I going to do? I'm going to clean the fridge. That's what I'm going to do. Donc je vais nettoyer le frigo. So it's an intention you have the intention of cleaning the fridge later. It's an intention. It's not a promise. It's an intention. It's a project. Je vais nettoyer le frigo. That's the intention I have. Je vais promener le chien. I might go and walk the dog, but I'm not promising. It's my intention for later this evening. Je vais promener le chien. Je vais, you might say, I'm going to, I think I'm going to start judo. Je crois que je vais commencer le judo. So I think I might have the intention of starting judo. And this is why we use this tense. Je vais, I'm going to, plus action. What is the action that you're going to do? What is the action that you have the intention of doing? But not promising, just the intention. You might look at the curtains and say, I think I'm going to change the curtains. Je crois que je vais changer les rideaux. Je vais changer les rideaux. It's an intention. If you go down to number 2, still in the same column, number 2, tell me something that you predict will happen in the future. So any sort of prediction, that there's going to be a lot of people in town tonight. You don't know, you're looking in your crystal ball, you don't know, you're predicting. You say, it could be sports also. It could be, you might say they're going to win. Ils vont gagner. They are going to win. I'm predicting. I don't know this. I'm predicting. Ils vont gagner. They are going to win. And the example of there's going to be a lot of people in town tonight. Il va y avoir beaucoup de gens en ville. Il va y avoir beaucoup de gens en ville. You could say it's going to be fun, but I don't know if it's going to be fun. I'm just predicting. Ça va être amusant. That's the second function of aller plus verb. Number 3, if you go down one, tell me of a consequence. If this, then that's going to happen. I like the example of the dog for this one. If you don't tell him no, he's never going to learn, or if you don't tell him no, he will never learn. So you can say si tu ne lui dis pas non, if you don't tell him no, il ne va jamais apprendre. So il va apprendre, he's going to learn. Il ne va jamais apprendre si tu ne lui dis pas non. So this is a consequence of an action. So if this, then that. If you don't leave now, you're going to be late. Si tu ne pars pas maintenant, tu vas être en retard. If you don't leave now, you are going to be late. Si tu ne pars pas maintenant, tu vas être en retard. So it could be so this is a consequence, but it could also be a prediction of the future, and it could be something that you have the intention of doing later. And I wonder if I can find one sentence that applies to all three cases. If we say je vais me reposer, it means I'm going to rest. So je vais, I'm going, me, myself, I'm going to rest myself. So je vais me reposer. And we can think of three cases. I have the intention of what are you going to do? What do you have the intention of doing later? Je vais me reposer. That's the first thing, is I have the intention of resting tonight. Je vais me reposer later on. It's something I have the intention of doing. Number two, something that you predict will happen. So when I'm on holiday, I'm going to rest. I predict this is going to happen. I'm fairly sure I'm going to be able to rest on holiday. So en vacances, je vais me reposer. Je vais bien me reposer. So I'm predicting that this is going to happen when I am on holiday. Je vais bien me reposer. I'm going to rest well. And the third case is a consequence of an action. It's not easy to find a third example where you could imagine a soldier who's on guard and who might tell his colleagues, well, if you guys are staying there, if you lot are staying there, then I'm going to rest, I'm going to take a rest. Si vous restez là, je vais me reposer. So it's a consequence, if this, then that. Si vous restez là, alors je vais me reposer. And it works in all three cases. It wasn't easy to find a third case. Let's move to column number 2, the future tense. Number 1, tell me something that you promise will happen. Now this is the big difference between je vais, I'm going to plus verb, and the future tense, the proper future tense, if you can call it like that. The difference is the promise, the level of certainty. It has nothing to do with close or far away, it has to do with the degree of certainty. So tell me something that you promise will happen. I will tidy my room tomorrow morning. Je rangerai ma chambre demain à 10h, demain matin. So you're really promising here. It's not the same as saying I have the intention of cleaning my room. Je vais ranger ma chambre. I'm going to tidy my room. That's not the same thing. That's not a promise. A promise is je rangerai ma chambre. In the context of business also, I will give you the answer tomorrow. I'm promising. It's a high level of commitment. So je vous donnerai ma réponse. I will give you my answer. I'm promising. It's not the same as saying je vais vous donner ma réponse. I'm going to give you my answer. That's not a promise. Je vous donnerai ma réponse demain. I will give you my answer tomorrow. Je vous dirai ce que je fais. I'll tell you what I'm doing later. Je vous dirai ce que je fais. All these are promises. And it also applies to declarations of love. I will always love you. It's not the same thing as saying I'm always going to love you. Will you always love me? Yeah, I'm always going to love you. No, you want to hear I will always love you. Yes, I will. Je t'aimerai toujours. I will always love you. It's a high level of commitment. It's a promise. It's not like saying je vais toujours t'aimer. No one wants to hear that. I'm always going to love you. You want a high degree of commitment, and that's the role of the future tense. It's the big difference between having the intention of doing something and actually promising that you're going to do something. If you go down one, you'll see number 2, tell me something that you predict. Now here you have the choice. When you predict something in French, if it's a prediction or if you're expressing a consequence, you always have the choice between the future and je vais plus verb. You can really do both. And if you go back to the example of the dog, if you don't tell him no, he's never going to learn, you can also say, well, if you don't tell him no, he will never learn. He's never going to learn, he will never learn. You can do both, really. Si tu ne lui dis pas non, il ne va jamais apprendre. But you could also say, si tu ne lui dis pas non, il n'apprendra jamais. And apprendra is the future tense. It's just a possibility. Something that you predict will happen might be it's going to be fun. And here you have two choices. Ça va être amusant is something that you predict. You're looking into your crystal ball. You don't know if it's going to be fun. Ça va être amusant, it's going to be fun. Or you could say it will be fun. Ce sera amusant. Ce sera amusant or ça va être amusant. You have two choices. It's like saying they're going to be happy to see us or they will be happy to see us. You don't really know if they will, but you're predicting. You could say ils seront contents de nous voir, they will be happy to see us, or ils vont être contents de nous voir, they are going to be happy to see us, but in any case we don't know, so you always have two options when it comes to predicting something or expressing a consequence, if this then that, or predicting. Now, the big difference is between expressing an intention and promising something, which is where you don't have a choice. And if it helps you to remember, the example I will always love you is not the same thing as I am always going to love you, of course. And the very last one is column +3. We're going back to the present tense. This has an equivalent in English also. Tell me something that is sure to happen, and this is often bookings or events that are sure to happen. For example, next weekend my parents are coming to see us. So I'm using the present tense. They are coming to see us because we have an appointment, they've already agreed, and I'm sure it's going to happen. So it's not a prediction, it's not a promise. They are going to come and see us. Donc, le week-end prochain, mes parents viennent nous voir. So next weekend, my parents come to see us. So I'm considering that it's true, it's inevitable, it's already booked, it's already decided. Another example is a restaurant, because you have a booking, it's considered a certainty. You have a booking, it's booked in the future. So tomorrow evening, we are eating at a restaurant. Demain soir, on mange au restaurant. You have your booking, you've made a reservation. It's considered something that's sure to happen in the future. So tomorrow evening we are eating at a restaurant. But this doesn't work for predictions. You can't say, oh, the Chicago Bulls are surely winning this match. It doesn't work. You have to say they will surely win or they are surely going to win. You can't sort of look at the TV and say, oh, I know, the Celtics are surely winning, or the Chicago Bulls are surely winning. Doesn't work. Doesn't work like that in French either. You can't say, oh, it's raining tomorrow, I'm sure of it. Doesn't work. You can't say il pleut demain. It doesn't work. So, voilà, there you go. So we've just looked at most of the basic tenses in French. I hope it was useful. This was a fast-forward French class. It was very quick, but I'm sure you can use this PDF and put it to good use, and it might help you, at least I hope so, to reflect on the use of the French tenses. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Chris from We Communicate. Goodbye.